In the cool evening over the lightning-lit city of Abuja, Sarah made her way back to her small apartment, exhausted from another long night of work. She had been a prostitute for years, and it had taken a toll on her body and soul. She had slept with countless men, young and old, rich and powerful. There was the young entrepreneur who had paid her to accompany him to a business dinner, the elderly millionaire who had flown her to his private island for a weekend of indulgence, and the powerful politician who had sneaked her into his hotel room during a campaign stop. Sarah had seen it all, and she had grown numb to the endless stream of faces and bodies. She had learned to put on a mask, to pretend to be whoever her clients wanted her to be. But despite her tough exterior, Sarah was a vulnerable and sensitive person. She longed for love and connection, but she didn't know how to escape the cycle of prostitution. One day, as she was walking down the street, Sarah was approached by a woman who invited her to a church fellowship. Sarah was skeptical at first, but there was something about the woman's kindness and warmth that made her accept the invitation. The next day, Sarah found herself sitting in a crowded church, surrounded by people who seemed to radiate joy and peace. She felt out of place, but as she listened to the pastor's message, she began to feel a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in years. After the service, Sarah was approached by a man named Michael. He was kind and gentle, with a warm smile and piercing blue eyes. They struck up a conversation, and Sarah found herself feeling drawn to him in a way she hadn't experienced before. As they talked, Michael showed Sarah a level of respect and kindness that she wasn't used to. He didn't know about her past, and Sarah didn't tell him. For the first time in her life, she felt like she could be herself, without fear of judgment or rejection. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Michael grew closer. They went on long walks, had deep conversations, and explored the city together. Sarah felt like she had found a true friend, and she couldn't believe her luck. As the months passed, Michael's feelings for Sarah deepened. He realized that he was falling in love with her, and he couldn't imagine living without her. Sarah, too, had fallen deeply in love with Michael, but she was terrified of telling him the truth about her past. Despite her fears, Sarah knew that she couldn't keep her secret hidden forever. But for now, she was content to bask in the love and acceptance that Michael offered her. One day, Michael took Sarah to a beautiful park and proposed to her. Sarah was overwhelmed with emotion as she said yes. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly loved and accepted. The wedding was a beautiful affair, with friends and family gathered to celebrate the union of Sarah and Michael. As they exchanged their vows, Sarah felt a sense of peace and happiness that she had never known before. But as they danced at the reception, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her past would one day catch up with her. She pushed the thought aside and focused on the present moment, determined to enjoy her newfound happiness with the man she loved. For 2 years, Sarah and Michael had built a beautiful life together. Their love had deepened with time, and despite Sarah's initial fears, Michael had never given her a reason to doubt his devotion. Their home was filled with laughter, warmth, and dreams of starting a family. Sarah had done everything to be the perfect wife, loving, supportive, and faithful. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and Sarah's past was about to catch up with her in the most unexpected way. Michael's cousin, Daniel, had been away in Germany for nearly a decade, building a successful life for himself. When he finally returned to Nigeria, he was eager to reunite with his family, and Michael was thrilled to have him visit. "Sarah, my cousin Daniel is coming to stay with us for a week before he returns to Germany," Michael announced one evening. Sarah smiled warmly, though a strange unease crept in her heart. "That's wonderful. I'll make sure he feels welcome." Little did she know, Daniel was a man who knew her better than she ever could have imagined. The moment Daniel arrived at their home, Sarah felt the air leave her lungs. He was older now, more mature, but there was no mistaking him. He had been one of her regular clients back in the days when she worked in the shadows of Abuja's nightlife. She had spent nights with him in high-end hotels, fulfilling his desires, never imagining that years later, he would walk into her home as her husband's beloved cousin. Daniel's eyes widened in shock the moment he saw her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The recognition was instant. Sarah could see the disbelief in his gaze, the slight smirk that curled at the edge of his lips, a smirk that sent a cold shiver down her spine. Michael, oblivious to the tension, embraced his cousin. "It's been too long, my brother. Meet my beautiful wife, Sarah." Daniel chuckled, his voice laced with something Sarah couldn't quite place. "Oh, trust me, Michael. I know Sarah." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced a smile and extended her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Daniel." For the first few days, Daniel played along, pretending nothing was wrong. But his smirks, the knowing glances, and the subtle remarks he made when Michael wasn't looking made Sarah uneasy. She could tell he was toying with her, enjoying the power he had over her. One evening, when Michael had stepped out to buy some groceries, Daniel cornered Sarah in the kitchen. "You really thought you could bury the past, didn't you?" he whispered, leaning in close. Sarah swallowed hard. "Daniel, please. Michael doesn't know. I've changed. I love him." Daniel chuckled darkly. "Oh, I believe you. But does he deserve to be lied to?" Sarah's hands trembled as she placed a plate on the counter. "I was going to tell him, eventually." Daniel leaned back, crossing his arms. "You should have done it before I walked through that door." The next evening, as they all sat down for dinner, Daniel set down his fork and looked directly at Michael. "Brother, there's something I need to tell you," he said, his tone grave. Sarah's stomach twisted into knots. She knew this was it, the moment her world would come crashing down. Michael looked up, confused. "What is it?" Daniel turned to Sarah, then back to Michael. "Do you know who your wife really is?" Michael frowned, glancing at Sarah. "What are you talking about?" Daniel let out a short laugh. "Sarah isn't who she pretends to be. She's not just some simple woman who fell in love with you. She used to be a prostitute, Michael. And not just any prostitute, one of Abuja's finest. I know because I was one of her regulars." The room fell into complete silence. Sarah's heart shattered as she watched Michael's face drain of color. His eyes widened in disbelief, darting between her and Daniel. "Sarah," his voice was barely a whisper, "tell me this isn't true." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She had always feared this moment, but she never thought it would come like this. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "Michael, But the damage was done. Michael pushed his chair back abruptly and stood up. His face was a storm of emotions. Anger, hurt, betrayal. "You lied to me," he whispered. "All these years, you kept this from me?" Sarah reached out, but he stepped back. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how." Daniel smirked, leaning back in his chair, satisfied. Michael shook his head. "I need some air." And with that, he walked out, leaving Sarah with a sinking heart and the terrifying realization that her marriage was hanging by a thread. You can choose your actions, but you can't choose the repercussions of your actions.